Hope everybody's having a great day. If you've ordered the ScrapBox original, the Studio Tower, this is what you get. Two very long boxes on a pallet, strapped down with three other boxes on the same pallet. Everything on this order came in great condition, no damage whatsoever. So we're happy with that. We're going to do an instructional video step by step on how to assemble this thing. So stay tuned. I want you to notice that each box is labeled 1 of 1, 1 of 4, 4 of 4, and there's 3 of 4. But then over here is your box 1 of 1, which is your totes. I think you want to make sure this box is not majorly damaged or accordioned. As with any of these boxes, you want to make sure there's no accordion going on. Next we'll get into the opening. So I want to commence with opening box 1 of 1 first, just to get a glimpse as to what's inside of here. Make sure they're intact before I go into the rest of this thing. So I think box 1 through 4 that I showed you earlier are the main part of the unit. And then this looks to be like all of the totes. And they look to be packed really well. They have paper inserts inside of each one as not to scratch them. They look fairly malleable and flexible, so that's not a concern, which is pleases me. I don't want them to be too rigid. And then we have the dividers that go inside of these totes. You can optionally use those, but this looks like it's filled with all of the totes. I'm going to leave those in there for now because that's really the last piece of this project. These are the tools you're going to need. We have a rubber mallet. I have a utility knife, straight blade screwdriver, Phillips head screwdriver, and an Allen wrench. And I have a set of Allen wrenches. I don't know what size they use to assemble this, but I'll let you know a little later. I'll put it in the comments. And then a power drill is always nice and handy to have. They recommend it in the directions. Next we're going to open up box 1 of 4. This one's a heavy little guy, so be careful while lifting it. I'm guessing it's all the milling board. Yep. And the base. So, as you can see, it's packed fairly well with inserts, foam, cardboard, and these look to be all of the slats for the shelves. And then the Lazy Susans in here as well. It looks pretty heavy, which is probably why this is so heavy. Yeah, these are all the little slats. So we're going to set those off to the side here. Going to slowly start to just take things out of here. This is the Lazy Susan, and this is what the studio spins on. As you can see, all metal. Looks pretty resilient. Lots of bearings in there. Set that off to the side here. And then we have what look to be all of the shelves. These are 13 by 13 inches. And lastly we have 13 by 4 shelves for your folders. And then more 13 by 4 shelves. So that's really it for this box. It's all shelving, and the base unit, the rest is just styrofoam. So we're going to put that off to the side, and we'll get into box 2 of 4. Alright, so we're going to open up box 2 of 4 and see what we have in here. It's really important to inspect everything before you begin assembly and compare that against the manifest inside of the manual. So if you are missing something, you don't get halfway through your project to put this thing together, because it's a project. only to find out you're missing parts or pieces. That way you can get those things on the way as quickly as possible. This looks to be the base unit and the roof of it, likely. All in really great condition. Very pleased with the finish. You look at that. So I'm going to safely set this off to the side. And then we'll look at what else is in here. My guess is the base. Yep. So this is the base unit that mounts to B1, which has the Lazy Susan attached to it. All in really good shape. It's already got feet on the bottom. I'll put some pads on the bottom for my wood floors, but no scratches, dents. Everything looks to be in really good shape on that as well. So I'm pleased there. And that's box 2 of 2. Okay, we're going to move on to box 3 of 4. Going to move some of this stuff out of the way here. And this is a really long one, so what I typically do with these is cut the side open a little bit on either end, and then I'm going to lay it flat rather than try to pull what I think is in here out. I want to lay it flat so it doesn't come crashing out and fall over as we're doing this. These boxes are kind of awkward and heavy, so please be careful while moving these things. These look like the sides of the ScrapBox tower. Will be used. And some more pieces to join them together. It looks like a bag of hardware in here as well. There's no tools that come with the system here. I'm going to leave a lot of these in place here. I don't want to take them all out right now. But I can tell you the packaging is exceptionally well in this unit. I don't see any scratches, bumps, bruises, or damage whatsoever on box 3 of 4. So I'm going to close this one up. Just push it off to the side a little bit. We're going to move over to 4 of 4. This one's a bit larger. Lower it down. It's going to open the same way as the other, so I'm going to lift it up and cut open the sides first. It is handy having a short knife for doing this. This looks like more of the tall pieces that go along with it. They're all, oh, this is the box for a lot of the shelving with the logo, and another massive bag of hardware, and my guess is the rods for the front shelf to hold items or paper or whatever you have inside of your organizers. So next I'm going to take all these pieces out and I'll show you what it all looks like in one big pile, and then we'll start to organize them into sections of what assembly looks like. Alright, so I've unboxed everything. This is everything you get right here. Doesn't look too terribly difficult to assemble this thing. I'm going to try to get into it a little bit, but I just want to give you a glimpse of what everything looks like here. We'll cover in detail. So for instruction 1, this is what you're going to need. It's pretty obvious with some of these parts. Those are the 2 smallest wood pieces that come with the actual assembly. You have your wood dowels, your 180-degree lock screws, and then your pegs that are used for the lock screws. So we're going to start with instruction number 1 and assembling this piece. Hello, so for this step 1, we're going to use the electric drill, we're going to use the manual screwdriver, and a small rubber mallet, none of which come with this unit, so hopefully you have some of these tools laying around. We're going to install these little wood dowels. So the small plastic bag that had all of the initial one I showed you is all of the stuff you'll need for the first step of this project, and they'll all get used. So all the pieces are right down here. So we're going to install 3 dowels in each one of these end pieces, and you just pound them all the way to the end. They'll bottom out. You can kind of hear the change in the hammer a little bit. They go in pretty easily, so we'll put all 6 of these in, and then we're going to move on to using the rest of the dowels and get those inserted into the ends of these pieces. I put this piece of foam material on top of my wood floors as to not damage them. So I noticed that these dowels, when I put them in here, they just fall and they're loose inside of here. So what I'm going to try doing is putting the dowels instead inside of the side panels here, where they're going to be attached to these small pieces, and hopefully everything works out as planned. But they don't stay in place very well in these smaller pieces I'm finding, so I'm going to use all 4 of these in these areas instead, because they seem to have a much firmer fit inside these holes. Alright, next we're going to put in, we just finished putting in our dowels on all the places. You should use all the dowels on this step. Next we're going to put in these pins, and they have screw holes right here in the top, and they'll screw in by hand for the most part. I'm going to tighten them a little bit with a hand screwdriver, just snug, and put all 4 of these inside of this. These pins are going to help strengthen the rigidity of these 2 pieces when they go together. And the reason for that is we have these cam screws here that will lock onto these when we put the pieces, these end pieces here. That's what these large holes are for. So let me just get these in, and then we'll move on to that step. I noticed some of the dowels that I put on the sides here were popping through some of the slats, and so I just pushed them down or back out with the screwdriver like this so they don't interfere when you put in the shelving. I think you can do it when it's assembled too, but I just noticed that some of them pounded through the edge there because the dowels are a little bit longer than maybe necessary. So now the cam, the way the cam works is we drop the piece onto here, and then we do the assembly. But one thing key to note here is that you have a finished edge, then you have an unfinished edge. You want to make sure the right side edges are in the right place based on what you're building here. So one of these is the top and one of these is the bottom, and the shelving will go in like this. So the top will be up here, and then the bottom down here. So in this case, we have the bottom that looks like this. This piece will go into there, and then we're going to put a cam into the end of this piece, and that's going to go on this side over here. So I'm going to do the next cam here. So this is the pin that it sits on. It should be just snug, and that's about it. I'm going to put it on top of that, drop it down, it should remain flush. I'm going to take our cam onto our screwdriver. I'm going to put it into the hole and twist until it grabs. and then twist it until it doesn't go any further. And then that looks like that. We're going to repeat and do the same thing to the other side. So you notice how these boards are vertical now and they're offset on either side of the ends of the sides. So we're just going to drop this onto here. It should line up really well. We're going to drop it onto this side as well. And then we're going to insert our cams into it from this side. So I'm going to slide this down here. Hopefully you can see this. We're going to put the cam in and they turn counterclockwise. This one's not grabbing really well, so I'm going to... There it goes. I'm sorry, it's clockwise, not counterclockwise. So I'm going to put the cam into this side next. So you push them, you got to kind of work them back and forth. But they will grab and they will hold. So that makes step one complete of the shelf racking unit. That's what it should look like when it's done. Your slats go in here, so everything has to be aiming in the right direction. Okay, so these are the waterfall shelves that came as part of this unit that will go into these slats, and there's an order of which they go in. Not meaning that each slat is numbered, but what I mean is that you put them in a sequence so as not to, I guess, take it out of balance or something like this. But so I'm going to open all of these, and we're going to start at the top, and they call waterfall shelf number 1. All right, so we're going to start with the waterfall shelves. They're going to go in like this, with the half circle at the bottom. I'm going to start at the top. I'm going to put in the top shelf first and line these up and drop them in place. And that looks to be how they go. So the next shelf is going to go at the bottom, the very bottom. And just as a heads up, we're working from the back side of the shelf. And then we'll turn this around and show you what it looks like afterwards. But that's how they go in. And then you go back up to the top with shelf number 3. And you repeat that process until all of the shelves are in. So this would be number 4. So we're going to pause the video right now and I'm just going to finish these up. Side 1 and side 2 were bowing a bit, and so it was causing the the waterfall shelves to slide out. So, all right, so this is part C, or part instruction number 3. This physical part here is part C. It looks like this. There's only one of them. So we're going to put this on the back side of the waterfall shelving to hold everything in place. So I'm going to get this positioned up and we'll come back. Top of the shelf, and this is the bottom of the shelf. And so I'm going to lay this down sideways, and it's key to hold this thing together so the edges don't bow out or your waterfall shelves will slide out. So I'm going to lay it down in the front and hopefully everything just stays in place. And then I'm going to take this board and lay it directly on, as you can see, top and bottom respectively. And the dowel should line up with the dowel holes on this, so it may take a little bit of fitting, but we're going to see if we can get this to line up really well. And you'll feel the dowels kind of going into place on the piece, and it will sit in place. So now we're going to take our 8 screws and our power drill. I like to start in the middle. These are countersunk holes on the back of this, and there's 8 of them. So you don't need to go really super fast. Everything's countersunk. You don't want to strip these out. And everything is pre-drilled, so it makes it very easy for the drill to do its work. Okay, so all 8 screws are in. Everything seems like it's really rigid. You can go ahead and stand this up. It's a little heavy, so just be mindful. It's upside down right now, but this is kind of what it looks like. I'm going to flip it around so people can see it right side up and what that looks like. And there's your waterfall shelves as assembled. Alright, so here, make note on this instruction, this is the top and this is the bottom. We're going to lay this on its front, like such. Bring it down gently, lay it on the ground, and then we're going to put our our pins in place. And so these just screw into these locations. And we'll put all 6 of these in, and then we're going to lay the board on top of it that's sitting behind me, and then we're going to, which is known as part D, I'm going to lay it on to part C, which is the board I'm screwing these pins into, and then we'll install the cams onto that. So this is part D. It should line up with the cams like that. And we want to notate, just make sure we have our piece oriented the right way. It doesn't look like it has a right way versus a wrong way, so we're just going to put this onto these cams. Help it to fall down nice and even. The pins. Then we're going to install the cams. So these just go in and they twist in place once they're set 180 degrees. And you just do that for all 6 of these. And we're done with this page of the instructions. So it is that simple. Use 6 more cams and 6 more pins for this side. But for this step, we're going to use this shelf back here. So if you, the one that has the scrapbook mark on it, label. And what we're going to do is we're going to tilt this whole shelving unit down onto its back like this. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use some foam on this side to hold it up, so it doesn't sit down on its side too far. And what I'm going to do is take this unit here, and it's going to have cams on it on the back side that'll go, actually the pins that will go into these, so we can lock it in place. Couldn't stop. So take your 6 pins that we have here. We're going to install them just finger tight onto each of these screw holes here. It's pretty obvious where they go. Doesn't require a tool. But we are going to attach this to this other unit. As you know, this thing turns into a cube and it rotates, and so we're building essentially the cube right now, side by side by side. Go. Alright, so what we're going to do is I'm taking a piece of the foam from the packaging. There's no shortage of it, that's for sure. And I'm going to put that underneath here as just a small support so that we can drop this piece into place. And it's going to go into the side here. I'm going to put the pins in place. This one will be a little bit more tricky. You might want to have two people to do this, just because of how heavy the parts are. It's just a matter of lining them up and putting it in place. And it should go in fairly easily. Alright, so now we have our piece in place. We're going to take our cams, all 6 of them, and do just like we did to the other side, and put those in place. And I start in the middle, and then we're working my way to the ends, just because it helps to pull it in as I go. This is a hard one. Two more. I will add that these cams are a bit harder to do. If you find yourself struggling turning the screwdriver, you might be able to get a power screwdriver in here to help with the turning. It does help having a long blade though. And then I'm peeling the stickers off of these as I'm going too. I don't want to run into an issue of not being able to get at them. So we have sides A and B here, and then we have this joiner board here in the middle. The next piece we're going to use is called B2, not to be confused with the other piece that looks very much like it called E2. B1 will attach to this eventually. We're going to put 14 of these wood screws in place. I'm going to use my power drill. You're welcome to use a hand screwdriver if you want to. If you're using a power drill, be sure not to overdo it on the tightening, is not to split your melamine board apart when you're going inside. So we're going to put this in place here. And it's going to sit, look sideways like this, with all of the screw holes facing out. And there's pilots on every one of the screw holes, and so they should go in fairly easy. I'm going to show you with non-powered screwdriver first, so you can make sure your holes are lining up. You can do that and just put in one gently, and then another one. Just make sure your holes line up like that. That's typically how I'll start these things, because sometimes it can be a bugger trying to line up the holes to the screw hole. So you don't have to tighten them all the way, but you can just kind of get them screwed into their places a few turns, and then come in with the power screwdriver and finish it off. That way you have a little bit more preciseness with your assembly, and it will go a lot smoother for you. All right, here's the this is the top. This is going to be E2, so we're going to put E2 in its place. I'm taking this sticker off now, so it might be harder to get to. And there's going to be the same amount of screws to do this one. So use the same method. I'm going to use the handheld screwdriver first to get the screws set into the pre-drilled holes. Get the whole thing lined up first. So there you have the next instruction. I think that was step 5. We're going to move on to step 6, which is going to be working on the bottom. Then we're going to put on the Lazy Susan onto the bottom of this. So this is the top. We're going to have to go to the other side, so we'll be right back. Alright, for this one we're going to use B1, the base. We're going to use the Lazy Susan. I'm going to put this screw side down with the bolt coming out of the top. And I'm going to lay this over the top of this base, like so. And you'll understand why we're putting it on the base here in a minute. And and I'll show you. And we're going to put our 4 screws along with our 5/32 Allen wrench. That's 5 32 of an inch. I'm going to put these just snug with the long shank side of the Allen wrench first, and then I'll come through and I'll tighten each one of them one by one after they're snug in place, so that they don't so if I need to do any last minute maneuvering, I can still do that if I need to without having to loosen up a bunch of bolts. Only to have to slide it around, because you want this thing as best centered as possible on here. As if it's not, guess what, it's going to slide around. And this one looks like it's in a good spot, so I'm going to go ahead and use the small end shank to tighten these down. And it's probably going to be 2 or 3 tightens on each of these Allen head screws to be able to get them to where they're nice and snug. So I'm going to do that to all 4 of these. Maybe a little bit more than 3 turns. Okay. And then this one. And the last one. And there you have it. So you see this hole right here? That's an access hole to tighten the screws onto the base of the scrap box. So now we're going to lift this up on top of there and get the rest of the screws put into place. This is going to be a little bit more difficult because the screws have to be dropped in using the Allen wrench, and they're kind of small. So, all right, so this base is going to come up and lay down like this on the bottom side of the scrap box, and we have to carefully line up the holes. I can already see I'm going to need a chair for this exercise, so bear with me. All right, so this is a little bit more of a tricky part. This person with skinny hands has to kind of get under here and guide the screw into place while you grab it with the Allen wrench from the top, and then screw down at the same time. So it's going to be hard to give you closely guided instruction on this, but there are 4. I'm doing one at a time and then rotating because you only have the one hole to deal with here. So you just have to rotate the hole to where it lines up and then look down in there to see if the panel's lined up. So I'm obviously not tightening these down right now. If your Allen wrench holds the screw in place, mine does not, so it falls out. It's best to kind of come underneath with your hand and hold it in place and get it put into place if you can, and then take the Allen wrench and get a hold of it and screw it into place. And you can see I wasn't even looking in there, I was doing it all by feel. The holes are pretty obvious where they sit, but this one's not lined up, so I'm just going to slide it. That's why I don't tighten them down right now. I'm going to do the same thing. This time I'm going to take the screw in my fingers like this and try to get it as... Actually, I'm not going to be able to get in there with that one. This one's going to be a little more difficult, so I'm going to have to go fast. All right. There's the final tightening of the base. And there we are. All right, so this is the last step. Well, almost the last step. We got to assemble the shelves and stuff like that. But this is the step where we put the lid on. We're going to use 4 wood screws that came in their individual bag. They're 1 1/4 inches. I'm going to start them with my regular Phillips head screwdriver, hand driven, and I'm going to finish them with the power drill. So I'm going to set this down, open these screws up here, put those down. But I want to spin this to kind of show you the function of the base. Alright, so I'm coming underneath here and I'm going to screw into the top. Alright, so I'm using the 1 1/4 inch screws with my power drill to put them into the 4 countersunk holes. There's 2 in the front, 2 in the back, and do 2 on this side. And then we'll finish off the top. And there you go. Alright, with your tower assembled and rotating, I put the shelves for the waterfall shelves in front, and just to the left of that are where these shelves are going to go, and they have these plastic clips that insert. There's different patterns that you can use based on whether you have fabric shelves or plastic totes. I think I have both, but these just simply insert into there, and then the shelves have a finished edge and then 3 unfinished edges, and then they slide into these locations. And so you can position these any way you want. There are suggestions inside of the instructions for how you want to do that, and all the shelves are there. And then there's another side over here that has the same type of thing, but different clips for metal bars that you can install for your own purposes and needs. So I'm going to go ahead and configure ours the way we want it. I'll show you what one looks like here in a second. Basically these pins slide into here, and you light them up, and you can need 4 per, and make sure they line up across. Okay, so I got my 4 clips installed with the shelf holders, and what you simply do is you take the shelf in at an angle, maybe not as extreme, but they do snap into place nice and firm. Alright, here's the completed tower of your ScrapBox, and we spent a good amount of time putting the shelves in, probably about 30 minutes worth of work for 2 of us. These small shelves went in pretty difficult, so be cautious with those. I noticed some of the board chipping away when they were snapping into place. These metal bars were a tad bit short, but they do work and serve their purpose and function. Here's the totes. When you're installing the pegs for the boards, the shelves to go on, just be mindful and count according to the documentation, or based on whether or not you want these smaller or large, tall shelves on the top versus the bottom, or how you want them distributed. You have to skip peg holes to be able to do that accordingly. So just be mindful of that. So I hope you enjoyed this video. It took us about probably an hour and a half to 2 hours to put this together, and I hope you find it useful. Share with your friends. Bye for now.